Welcome to this week's EMBN Show. We are going big this week, taking a look at some big hitting machines and seeing what they're all about.
Plus, taking a look at a couple of really cool new bikes using the small TQ motor, plus all the usuals like Where in the World and the Bike Vault. Chris, I think me and you are big fans of long travel e-mountain bikes. I ride my Kenevo, it's 170mm.
Definitely, I rode my Kenevo around a big cross-country loop with Rich the other day on GMBN.
I saw that with your triple clamp forks on. But do you think like e-bikes sort of take away the, the sort of bad side of riding a bigger travel bike where they're kind of harder to pedal, less efficient? I guess with an e-bike, as well, if you've got a steep seat tube angle and a decent rear end length on it, then you can climb up some pretty amazing stuff even with a big travel.
Definitely, I think the comfort levels as well. You know, you're on those big travel bikes, sometimes you've got coil shocks on there, big dual crown forks, just sometimes that bit more comfortable as well, I find, on those cross-country rides. And I mean, if you were to ride the equivalent mountain bike of that style around, it would be hard work, right?
I guess same thing, it's not going to be as efficient, so you're going to wear through your battery a bit quicker than you would on a short travel bike. But yeah, the downsides I feel like are much smaller on an e-bike.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the e-bike industry at the minute has settled around sort of 150 is kind of like the benchmark travel, hasn't it, for trail bikes and stuff. And I think anything above that, 160, 170 to like 200mm, you're going into that big travel stuff, aren't you? So,
well, you know they're going to work really well downhill. Like that Poly, that bike's Voima, it's got a 190mm travel rear end on there and a super steep seat angle on there, so going to climb pretty decent as well.
It's crazy, isn't it? But we checked out a load of long travel bikes out of the Rock du Jour, so check this out. Most long travel e-mountain bikes have very different characteristics to most e-mountain bikes that are out there. We're talking long travel forks, usually around 180 to 200mm. Wheel size is usually either 27.5 front and rear, or you might get a mixed wheel size, but some long travel bikes also have that 29er front and rear. And battery-wise, well, that will vary from brand to brand. Some companies go for smaller watt-hour batteries, such as a 500 watt-hour unit. Now, these are designed to be taken on your ride. You stick a couple in your van, do your downhill runs, and once you've diminished one, you go back and stick a freshie in and go and do it all again. Tyre-wise, we're talking about some big, aggressive, sticky rubber here. We're not too worried about range, we're all about grip. We've also got some serious stopping power on these bikes. 200mm, 220mm rotors on this thing. They're the kind of bikes that if they were mountain bikes, you'd see these on an uplift going up the hill. But with that e-power, well, these things can go up and down over and over again. So what exactly are the differences between a long travel e-mountain bike compared to a standard e-mountain bike then? Well, that largely lies in the geometry. Starting at the front of the bike, you're going to have a slacker head angle, and this is all about adding stability to this bike when it's going super fast. And the wheelbase of this bike is likely to be longer than a regular trail bike. Now this is again adding to that stability package and making it less twitchy at high speed. And the bottom bracket height on this bike is designed to be really nice and low, and this is to add cornering ability to this bike. You've got that low down weight of the motor and the battery combined with a low bottom bracket. This thing will corner like it's on rails. And the seat tube angle on these long travel bikes, well, that's quite steep actually, and this is to help you climb back up the hills, because once you're descending, you're never going to sit down, right? And lastly, the componentry of these long travel bikes is going to be slightly different to those regular trail bikes. Things such as these big long travel forks at the front. This Fantic has the Öhlins 38 downhill fork on it, 200mm of travel on this thing, big hitting unit, and very stiff. And the rear shock on most of these long travel bikes is quite likely to be a coil option. Now this Fantic has the Öhlins rear shock on this, giving it 200mm of rear wheel travel. And the brakes, you definitely want some big sets of brakes on these long travel bikes. 200mm rotors, 220mm rotors are quite commonplace, as we can see on this bike here. Brakes coming from Breakin, which is an Italian brand, offer some awesome stopping power. And the tyres on these long travel bikes, well, they're going to be super sticky. It's all about getting some grip rather than range. And the wheels as well, well, these are some heavy hitting units on this bike. Mavic D-Max e-bike specific wheel set on here, 27.5 at the rear and 29 are up front, again with that sticky rubber. Big wide 2.8 carcasses on this bike with some puncture protection too. And the gearing on these bikes, well, you'll find that some manufacturers actually spec quite a road-based cassette on this, quite a smaller mountain bike cassette. We're talking, around 1136 compared to a standard 11, sort of 42, 46 like we've got on this bike. This is due to making it a bit more close ratio when you're racing downhill. You haven't got such a big jump in the gears. And at the front, again, it could be a slightly larger chain rings, maybe sort of a 34 to 36 could become the norm, so you don't spin out when you're going down the hill. And also chain retention is super important here. And most brands on the long travel bikes will have some form of chain device up front, again, with some nice chain protection on that chainstay. And something you might find a little funny on this bike is the spec of a dropper seat post. Now this is designed to help you climb back up the hill once you've descended back down. Some brands won't spec a dropper, some will. And the cockpit of a long travel bike is going to be something different than a regular trail bike too. First up, the stem on this bike is a direct mount unit from Renthal, meaning that the stem is actually mounted to the top crown of the forks. Now this gives a very direct feel to the bike and it's super stiff too, very little flex going on. Handlebar is going to be big, 800 millimeters wide on this bike to aid that stance and give you some good control over that bike at high speed. And again, these are going to be high-rise units, just get your weight back a little bit on the bike when you're going down the hill. Now this is another great example of a big hitting machine from German brand Haibike. Now this is the Enduro 8 freeride model. Now this is a true big hitting machine. We've got the Öhlins 38 fork up front, giving you 180 mil of travel. And again, an Öhlins shock on the rear of this bike, providing 180 mil of rear wheel travel. Mixed wheel sizes on this bike, 29 are up front, 27.5 out back, rolling on some big sticky rubber from Schwalbe, Big Betty out back, and a Magic Mary with a soft compound tire up front. Now power on this bike is the Yamaha PWX3 motor, super powerful unit, 85 Newton meters of torque. And on this bike we have a battery that is 750 watt hours, and you have an optional range extender on this bike. So if you're into getting loads of downhill runs in, this could be the ultimate setup for getting those miles in. Now, some other noteworthy features on this bike is the gearing of this bike. As I mentioned, on some bikes, you will have that bigger chainring up front, a 38-tooth chainring on this, combined with that SRAM Eagle cassette. So you've got a 1052 cassette on this bike, some big stopping power on there as well, and that Mavic D-Max E bike wheel set on this thing. And the braking on this Haibike is next level too. You've got a 223 millimeter rotor up front, and some big 4-pot brakes from Enduro to slow things down. Now this is a great example of a long travel e-mountain bike. Now this is the Cannondale Matera LT, standard for long travel. Now the biggest difference between this bike and the Fantic that we looked at earlier on is the fork up front. On the Fantic we had a dual crown 200mm travel fork, and on this bike we've got a single crown 170mm travel fork. Now the difference between these two, it just makes this bike a bit more universal in use. This is a big travel trail bike rather than a big travel downhill bike. And there's going to be some differences in the riding style that you're going to get from both of these bikes. First up is going to be that single crown fork up front. Biggest difference here over that dual crown model is when you're going slow, you're going to be able to do some slightly steeper turns than you would be able to do on that dual crown model. And the wheels and the tires on a bike like this are just going to be that little bit lighter and a bit more faster rolling than they would be on a full-on downhill e-mountain bike. Yet we have Assegai tires on this bike up front, but they do come in that 3C Max Terra compound, so they will be faster rolling models. And again, on that same rear tire, it is a 3C Max Terra compound to aid that rolling resistance and make this bike roll a lot faster. And the gearing on this Cannondale Matera, well, it's definitely aimed to help you climb back up the hill. We've got a 1051 cassette on this bike compared to that smaller cassette that we saw on the Fantic earlier. And some finishing touches on this bike where we've got some factory fitted mudguards front and rear on this bike, Performance Line CX motor on here, and we've got a coil shock from RockShox on the back of this bike, 165mm rear wheel travel, 750 watt hour battery on this, and again that cockpit, a nice high-rise bar with a 50mm stem on there, giving you a really connected ride feel with that big wide stance with those 800mm wide bars. And a real nice touch on these Cannondales is this Lezyne inbuilt headlight, meaning you can get out for those night rides, and that light is powered by that inbuilt battery, so no excuses about flat batteries when you get out for a ride. Wow, some good looking bikes there, right, Don?
What about that Fantic?
Good looking bike.
Big fan of that?
Big
tick
fan.
The boxes?
I like it, I like it. I do like the carbon seat stays on that bike, aluminium rear end. It's a good mix of different materials even.
There you go. We've talked long travel. Now we're talking other end scale. So BMC have got their 4-stroke. They're known for their short travel cross-country bikes. This is 120mm front and rear. I guess it's going to be a fast bike for, Euro riders, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. It's cool to see a few different brands using that new TQ motor. Of course, it was exclusive on the first Trek, that Fuel EX bike, but now that deal is expired, so we're seeing a few bands jump on that bandwagon, bike brands jump on that bandwagon and stick this motor in.
66.5 head angle on this bike, 77 seat tube. 4 different prices starting at $7,299.
Nice. And got another bike using that TQ motor, being the Simplon Rapcon P Max TQ. Catch your name, right?
It is, isn't it? Just tells you everything you need to know, I suppose.
But this is a bigger hitting bike, 165mm travel on this, full carbon frame. Got a TQ motor on there with that 360 watt-hour battery, and the weight of this thing, 19.5 kilos, so pretty lightweight for...
Pretty spendy. The top spec one is €14,309, but it kicks off at €8,599.
Yeah, depending on that build. Nice. Right, some sad news to round out our news section this week, and the fact that Revolution Bike Park is closing its doors at the end of the year, isn't it? So early January next year, so...
Shame for us British riders, and yeah, it's Japanese larch disease, and the trees are going to have to fell the whole place.
Yeah.
Let us know if you've ever had any problems in your area with these tree diseases shutting down riding spots. I hope it's not something that spreads.
Yeah.
Real shame to lose Revs, but I'd hate to lose more places as well.
I think Revs as well, I think it's been quite a benchmark sort of trail centre, hasn't it? The jump lines have been massive, and I think they've really pushed the boundaries of what has been possible on like UK ground. I know it's a bit different abroad than that, but for me, they've done sort of next level stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Really sorry to hear that news. And yeah, let us know if your riding scene has ever been affected by something like this. Right, it's time to go out and about to see where you guys and girls have been riding your e-bikes all over the world. What we got first, Don? Yeah, Brian is up in Glentress. It says, been missing GT. Always a cracking way to spend your weekend. Check that out. He's spent a few months converting an old van into an awesome day camper. That sounds like a good weekend. Got
some good weather for it there with the sun poking through as well. Next up, a bit more sunshine from Hawaii.
Yeah,
nice.
This is Pupukea, I think you pronounce that. I've always heard there's good riding and motocross. And surfing, obviously in Hawaii, that looks pretty amazing. Like the colour of that rear wheel.
Yeah,
I guess they're tan walls anyway, but it looks like there's just that sort of fresh dirt all over it.
I think we need to organise a trip out there.
Oh man, GTN, the triathletes have just been into Hawaii.
Have they?
I've never been.
Let's do it. Next up, a bike that you'll be keen on, Don. Stephen was Kenevo SL, top of the Devil's Staircase.
This is, Kinloch Leven. I've ridden Fort William loads, but I've not been out that... Actually, I have, years ago, but maybe not up that part of it. Some really amazing wild riding. It feels like you're in the middle of nowhere up that part of the world. Correct. And you got some good weather for it as well. That looks amazing.
Got some cool custom blue parts going on as well. Nice looking bike that, and an even nicer looking spot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And rounding up this week's Where in the World, we've got this in from Greaser out in Slovenian mountains.
Wow,
high bike Enduro X-Duro 2018 model. Big climb of nearly 2,000 metres.
2,000 metres? Yeah. Whoa.
He says, I was nearly death, but very nice mountain.
That's going to kill the battery, 2,000 metres, surely. Hopefully you got 2,000 metres descent out of that as well, so that was amazing.
But keep those entries coming into us here on Where in the World. We love seeing where you've been riding.
Quick shout out for the EMBN Shop. If you want to get ready for Christmas, I know it's only October, but get yourself over to the shop. There's some Christmas bundles, save some money, and maybe buy some presents at the same time. All right, Chris, what is coming up on the EMBN this week?
Well, we've got some good vids lined up, Don. On Friday, we're taking a look at the things that you need for winter riding on your e-mountain bike.
Nice.
Sunday, we've got Trek Rail versus the Fuel EXE. Steve's out in the middle of nowhere at the minute.
Two sort of identical looking bikes, pretty much.
Yeah, you've got that lighter weight motor, obviously, in the Fuel. And on Monday, we're taking a look at fitting a hardwired light to your e-mountain bike, so using that internal battery to power your lights. Should be good.
How much battery does that use?
Not a lot, I hope.
That's cool. I like the idea of that. So you can get out and do some night riding without having to carry an extra battery with you.
Right, it's Climb of the Week, and we've got a great entry in here from Rick, who's out in BC on his Kenevo. What do you think to this?
This makes me super jealous, because I keep talking about Squamish to everyone I meet, and basically say it's one of the best places, if not the best place I've ever ridden. And all I can think about is how good it would be on an e-bike. And Rick is going up Pleasure Trail. This is one of the few climbing parts of Pleasure Trail. And if the trail pretty much finishes at his front door.
Wow, imagine that, being able to climb up that tech.
This would be one of the best days right now ever, I think.
It looks
Rick, you've got it
so
good. I hope you know that.
And we love seeing whether it be a fail or a send or a climb of the week, tech of the week, anything you want to get featured on the show, make sure you use the uploader service. Details for that are down below. Right, it's time to dive into the comments and look at some recent feedback and comments from all the recent videos we've done here on EMBN. We're taking a look at the e-bike city challenge video. Got some feedback, right?
You got some heat as well. To start off with, Joe DeRosa says, my concern by commuting with the e-bike is the risk of wearing out soft compound tyres on the asphalt roads.
True.
Yeah, although I always think, I mean, I do this quite a bit, they don't wear out as quick as I would expect.
No.
Because you're not skidding and hitting edges, I guess.
No, especially, and I think you tend to run a bit more high pressure as well, so you haven't got that whole tyre in contact so much, especially like the edges, which are traditionally that softer compound, aren't they? So
yeah, true.
Isn't as crazy as what you think. We've got New Beginning says £45 per day to rent a bicycle. There are rental deals around for small cars that are around that price, but it is an e-mountain bike, it's not just a standard bike, as you've written. And I think here in Bath, if I had the choice of taking an e-bike out or a small car to drive around the city...
What? Yeah, I do it. I ride my e-bike. I've got an urban e-bike that is way quicker to get around town than it is to drive.
Yeah.
So it's not always about cost. It's actually the quickest tool.
Yeah, and seeing the sights and everything, isn't it?
I've commuted on everything. My e-bike, my mountain bike, my motorbike, and e-bike is the quickest way by far.
Definitely. I think even just parking, you know, if you want to stop in a cafe, you can literally pull up outside on your bike rather than go and pay, you know, £5-7 for a car park to get a cup of coffee.
Sort of Mario Kajin's kind of on that same vibe. Says he totally missed the point of a city e-bike. It's not about racing, it's about helping you out on the hills, correct, yeah, and getting up to speed. And I challenge you to ride your e-bike on tarmac with an empty battery and those sticky tyres. Been there, done that as well.
Not a lot of fun, is it, that one?
Up hills is killer.
Definitely doesn't want to put a smile on your face, that one. Right, should we get into the bike vault and see what bikes are kicking around?
Let's do it. All right, let's get into the bike vault and let's start with Robert and his Marin Alpine Trail E2. This is Surrey Hills in the UK. Some good riding around there. Also, Robert, big shout out to Trudy and Emma down in the Peaslake Village stores for amazing teas and pastries.
I'm sure you've sampled some of them over the years.
I have, big shout
out. What do you reckon? I think that's got to be just a nice, bike's a little bit lost. It's a cool structure though, I'm not too sure.
Cool. I think that's cool.
Not too sure what that is. Okay, next on the bike vault is Ron. He's got his 2022 Giant Trance E+2.
Yeah.
Starry night colour out in Arizona. Loving his Giant. Did a few more upgrades on it to make it a bit more capable.
I think they're a good looking bike actually.
They are cool, aren't they?
Especially the fork on that, is that a Zeb?
Yeah, got a Zeb on there as well.
Good looking bike.
Yeah, especially they've got an 800 watt hour battery in them as well. It's cool, isn't it? What are you thinking?
Nice.
Okay.
We have Freshie. This is Michael on his 2022 Fuel EXE 9.8 XT in Ontario, the Hydro Cut. Brand new bike inaugural ride. Loving it, I bet.
Loving
What's
that
going on in the background?
There's like some droid, a trail droid apparently, so some like kind of robot sort of structure. Looks like it's made out of a load of exhaust manifolds and car bits, doesn't it?
It's got to be a super nice, surely, for a brand spanking track.
Next up, we've got a shot in from Russell. He's got a Cannondale Matera 3 out in California. E-bike got me back on the bike, and this is a shot of a trail that I haven't done in quite some time.
Where's that? Mystic Canyon, Laverne.
Looks like a poo at the top. What does it say? Poop out.
Yeah.
Poop out.
Looks a bit like Laguna Beach, but I don't know. That looks cool.
Yeah, isn't it? I think that's got to be I think that's a nice from me.
Nice. Jason and his Nukeproof Megawatt RS in Tomtane, Kaislith, Scotland. Never heard of it. It looks cool though. Took a wrong turn, ended up knee-deep in mud.
Oh, God.
On that.
Just says, proved how capable an e-bike really is to get him out of that. Do you like those Michelin tyres on bikes at the minute?
It kind of suits the Nukeproof look as well. It's like the team look with a gold chain as well. Looks cool.
Pimp. What are you thinking?
I think that's super nice. Trig point as well. Line up against Trig point, which you know means you at the top of the hill. So
exactly.
Good downhill from there.
I got a bike in here from Rue out in Portugal. Just another great ride with some friends up the mountains in the Algarve.
That is, or Bear Rise M-Team. What's that on the top tube? Sort of an extra battery pack.
Battery or something. Boost. I don't know. But it's a great looking shot, isn't it? I'd kill to be riding there.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be a super nice for me, for sure.
Blue skies. Mark and his Levo, 3rd generation Pro, and then Lakes in the UK, out with Blaster the Sheep Warrior, my mate's nickname, enjoying 3 days riding the trails in the lakes.
Steve's out there at the minute, actually, so keep
Is
an
he?
eye out for him.
I've never ridden the lakes.
No,
Looks
nor have I.
flipping good, isn't it?
What do you think for that? Super nice?
Yeah, gotta be.
Okay. Next up, we've got Danilo, Albert Wild, out in Black Mountains in Wales, exploring new, spicier trails and discovering hidden gems like this ancient hill fort.
Oh, I've done some e-biking around the Black Mountains. It's
Have you?
good around there, actually.
I haven't seen a set of bar ends for a while, look.
No.
It's got to be a first. Are they bar ends or just ergon? Is it ergon? I can't quite see.
Check it out. It's got loads of, like...
Got all the accessories on there.
Got an Axis dropper post on there.
It's got a GoPro mounted up front, look.
All the kit.
Nice.
Nice.
And the final bike is coming in from AA's out in Hawaii again.
That's the same bike.
Is
it?
it?
Earlier.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, in the Where in the World, because I remember the dirty looking rear wheel.
The Trek.
Check it
double
out.
entry in the bike
There
vault.
you go.
What do you think?
That's super nice.
Super nice. Okay, rounding it out.
Yeah.
And that is it for this week's Bike Vault and indeed the show. Get involved in the comments box down below. Let us know what you think about big travel bikes and what bike would you like to see that new TQ motor in next would be a good one.
That's interesting.
Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to us here on EMBN and get in that EMBN shop and check out all the latest new kit too.